Breaking overnight, Israel is saying that it conducted a targeted raid on terrorist sites in northern Gaza using tanks. This before leaving the area. It described the raid as, quote, preparations for the next stage of combat. The IDF saying that soldiers struck numerous terror infrastructure and anti-tank missile launch posts. Joe.
And it's our pleasure to introduce our next guest. Says that U.S. support for Israel is crucial and that there should be no backing down until Hamas is eliminated. Joining us now, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, also former governor of South Carolina, and a 2024 presidential candidate that's right there with Governor DeSantis, either right there or...
Getting past him. We're going for the big guy.
What is it? If you want something done?
If you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
I know. I can't believe I bring that up. It seems like I'm undercutting myself in some way. No,
Or speaking the truth.
Yeah, or speaking the truth. I can tie it all together in this way. We wanted to talk to you about the new speaker and the chaos in the House. The new speaker mentioned we need to get aid okayed for Israel, but left out Ukraine in that whole equation. And we've seen that President Biden wants to tie the two together. What's the right thing to do?
You know, the one thing I'll say is America has to get this right. The world is on fire, and America has to get this right. The right thing to do is we were there for Ukraine because it's a pro-American, freedom-loving country that was invaded by a thug. And that thug has said that once he takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries, and that's about war. We're about preventing war. So you've got Ukraine, then you have Israel, and we see what's happening in the Middle East. We do both. If you leave Ukraine, then the next step is they're going to want to leave Israel. We already accepted defeat in Afghanistan. That was horrible the way it happened. We cannot leave Ukraine. You can do both. And we should do both. It's the right thing to do. And so anybody that's saying, oh, now you have to pick between Ukraine and Israel, that's an absolute mistake. You have to always be there for our friends. And we should never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. On September 12th, we needed a lot of friends. We've got to quit talking like it's September 10th.
What do you think the end game, though, is for Israel? Because Hamas is as much about individual actors as it is almost about an idea. And I wonder just long term how you even get to an end game.
That idea has a lot of actors and proponents, and we've seen it around the world.
Clearly,
but keep in mind,
clearly, but also the backlash against however you would get to Hamas, however you would hold these individuals accountable, there is going to be losses along the way. And the question is, how do you do that in a way that actually makes the world come together around this?
You're not going to please the world.
You're not going to. Look, Israel has always tried to defend itself, and Israel has always been hit because of it. And what I would say at the United Nations, and what I'll say today, if that happened to any other country, there would be hell to pay. But because it's Israel, everybody's like, don't do too much. We should be doing three things. One, support Israel, whatever they need, whenever they need it, no questions asked. Two, eliminate Hamas. Don't weaken them, eliminate them, because if we don't, they will do this again. And three, do whatever it takes to get our hostages home. But see the bigger picture of all of this. There would be no Hamas without Iran. And look at what the bigger story of this all is. You have China and Russia name themselves unlimited partners. Iran is their junior partner. China is importing all of its oil from Iran, sending billions of dollars their way that they support terrorism with. Russia's getting drones and missiles from Iran. Look at the three. What do they all have in common? They all want to destroy the West, and they all hate America.
The Economist, the latest edition, has this question, wondering if we will be stretched too thin to fight a potential three-pronged war, the two that exist right now, and add China to the mix. What happens? Is there a way to do this without creating World War III?
Yes, there's a way to do this. And first of all, you look at Ukraine and Israel. If we just dealt with those two, that's only 20% of what Biden's green subsidy bill did.
But if we deal with what's happening with Hamas, and you brought up Iran, does that mean we deal with Iran too? And how do you not start World War III without doing that?
If you eliminate Hamas, you're sending Iran a message. Right now, look at how Iran is acting. They're trying to, Qatar, the fact that they've negotiated hostages, we've had 4 prayers answered. We've got 210 prayers to go. But why are they doing this? They're trying to avoid Iran being embarrassed by Israel going and taking out Hamas. They're sending strikes from Hezbollah. They're sending strikes from
But that's the
Houthis.
question. I mean, I agree with you. Israel should be able to defend itself. I just wonder how we do this without, you think Iran will step down if Hamas is eliminated in Gaza?
You do it with strength. First of all, we don't know what Iran is going to do, but we don't run from fear. What we do is we eliminate Hamas. Don't forget that they rounded up those children, tied their hands behind their back, and burned them alive.
Are we going after Hamas leadership in Qatar? Right? I mean, are we really doing this?
We should.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, that's when people say they want to go after Hamas, then the true domino effect is real. So you have to go into Qatar, a country that says that they're our friend, and you'd have to do things that would be very, very complicated. I'm not saying you don't do them. I'm just saying all of a sudden it gets...
No, that's exactly what we did with ISIS. Do you think we didn't go take out the heads of ISIS? We did that wherever they were. We don't go to one region. We go and take out the people who were doing this. It's the reason we took out Soleimani. You go and take out anyone who wants to destroy America or destroy our friends. And we have to start getting this conversation right. I look at what's happening on college campuses, and thank goodness for the donors pulling their money or people leaving boards. But what are all of them saying on college campuses? First, there should be freedom of speech, but you don't get freedom of hate. And what we're seeing now is they're talking about occupation. Is there occupation in Gaza? There's absolutely occupation in Gaza by Hamas.
It's funny because
there's not an Israeli or a Jewish person in Gaza.
Governor, some of the same people who are saying you don't get to have freedom of hate, you're allowed to have freedom of speech. But now they're saying you need to have freedom of hate. Some of the same people that didn't, that would apply that rule in one setting are now saying, do you think we should be doxing students and their lives can be affected in the future if they show up at a...
I tell my children now, everything you put on social media and everything you say is going to dictate who hires you and whether you get a job.
Bill Ackman won't hire someone that he sees at a rally or...
I wouldn't hire someone that's celebrating Hamas. I wouldn't hire someone who is going to go out there and spew hatred because I don't know what they're going to do in my company. And so what I'll tell you is I think we should revoke all the tax-exempt status of universities that are allowing this to happen in the first place.
I think
Their job is to protect students.
Your competitor just did that in Florida.
You should. Any university that doesn't protect students, any university that allows hate to spew, you should go and pull their tax-exempt status. Colleges don't get the right to do this.
We fight tooth and nail for increases in defense spending. And President Biden, I mean, there have been small increases. Is that enough? And I'll tell you why I thought about this. Iran is front and center, but you mentioned the hideous triangle between Russia, Iran, and China. Down the road, is China our biggest fear?
China is still our number one biggest security threat.
To keep increasing defense? I mean, isn't that going to be something we deal with for the next 50 years?
But understand what deterrence is. Why is it that the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians? Because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't go into Taiwan. Why is it that Ukrainians want us to support Israelis? Because they know that if we support Israelis, we stop Iran.
All linked.
It's all linked together. This is a bigger story. And so that's the reason why America has to get this right.
But how do you sell the country on, we're back to being the world's police officer? I mean, that's what you're effectively arguing we have to be.
No, we are about protecting Americans and protecting our friends, not the police officer. We're not telling people how to live or what to do in their other countries. We're telling them not to kill Americans. We're telling them not to kill Israelis. And we're telling them that we're going to eliminate terrorists wherever we see them. And I think it's hugely important that we stay true to that.
You have a diagram of how 2024 plays out in your favor? Because, I mean, I don't want to bore you with where we are right now. Do you think it'd be a problem if either Donald Trump or Joe Biden is president in 2024 with all the issues you're talking about right now?
75% of the country doesn't want a rematch of Biden and Trump.
But how do we get there? What's going to, I mean, indictments don't...
I win. It's that simple. So now we are second place in New Hampshire and South Carolina. We're tied for second place in Iowa. I've got one more fellow to go after. But let me tell you something. If ever you look at the world stage and see what's happening, we have to have a new generational leader. We can't deal with the grievances of the past, the headlines of the past. You know, what happens? We have this horrific tragedy in Israel, and Donald Trump's going to sit there and talk about an old issue he's got with Netanyahu. You don't do that to a country who just brutally lost so many of their people.
Well, he's got more,
but he's continuing
he's got
to
more
live in the
grievances
past.
with Georgia election officials than he has.
He's got grievances with everybody, but I'm saying we don't have time for grievances. We have a country to save.
So what do you ascribe the situation in the House to at this point? The leadership, members of the House who all ran and said they wanted to be the next speaker, couldn't get coalition from the rest of the Republican caucus that's there. Again, the guy who is the speaker at this point voted not to fund Ukraine. How do you take that message and convince Republicans before you even get to the main stage?
I think, first of all, we have to look at the fact that the last couple of weeks was a total embarrassment for Republicans. I mean, that is not what Republicans need to do. When I was governor, I had a Republican House and a Republican Senate that butted heads all the time. And I would call them into my office and say, we're not leaving until we figure this out. They shouldn't have gotten paid through the whole time this was happening. They shouldn't have gone home. Now that there's a speaker, I pray that he's successful. We need him to be successful. America cannot be distracted. We saw what happened when Israel was distracted. America can't think that that can't happen here.
But he's a close confidant and friend of President Trump's. He was very involved with trying to keep him in office after the last election.
All eyes are on him. We'll all be watching his leadership. And, you know, it's different when you are a voter of one representing a small district and when you're leader of the House and you represent everyone. You have to watch out for the good of the entire conference. And so that's what we'll watch. Look, I want him to be successful. America needs to be strong and not distracted.
We're getting some good backing. One of our guests, frequent guests, and we love Judd Gregg, Senator Governor Judd Gregg said, the nation needs Nikki Haley. Calls her a strong leader who can win. Get a few more of those and maybe this. But you still got that elephant in the room. I don't, the numbers just don't add up at this point.
You know, that's what everybody said when they asked me, well, how are you going to break out of the field? And then when they asked me, well, how are you going to beat DeSantis? And now they're saying about Trump, the goalpost keeps moving. But I'm telling you, you are going to see it's slow and steady wins the race. We're disciplined, we're focused, and the people are coming with us.
One more, because I have Megan, you know, I can't deny her. You've called yourself a union buster. What about this deal with Ford and the ongoing negotiations between the UAW and GM and Stellantis? That's pretty. We like when people get raises, Nikki. Right?
Of
I mean,
course.
and they didn't get raises during the financial crisis. It's
So
a good thing or a bad thing?
So I was a union buster in South Carolina because I made sure that the workers had direct contact with the people who hired them. I didn't want a middleman in there. I told my owners, I want you to make sure that you use your people to find your solutions, that you take care of them and respect them for who they are, and that you have, you know, family time for them to know when they're going to go to church and let them know how to have family picnics with the company so that they can feel invested. I made sure that direct communication was there. What happens is when the direct communication goes away, a union buster or a union comes in, and it's all about the union and them making their money. I want people to make money. I want manufacturers to manufacture. We've got to get the middlemen out of there. What I will say is this is all the fact that if you have a president who's the most pro-union president you've ever seen, you're going to have more strikes like this, and we're seeing that play out. But why did this happen? Because Joe Biden was so adamant about having as many electric cars as we can by 2030 that it caused a panic within the automobile manufacturing sector. That's what did this, was that. And not only that, it's not even realistic to have electric cars by then. We don't have the infrastructure, and I'm not talking about charging stations. Electric cars are heavy. Our roads and bridges aren't cut out to have that many electric cars sitting on the road at the same time. We need to start being realistic and look in moderation at the way we do anything. Any extremes are always going to be bad for the country.
Well, you got to go. You're headed over to The View, I know. Maybe not. Maybe
not that, no.
This is your place, I think, seriously. Instead of, and you reach the best people here. We love having you on.
Y'all are so nice. Thank you. I
Great to see you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Not too nice, though. I can be not so nice. I can think of something.
I love the tough questions. Keep bringing them.
All right, Governor, Ambassador, thank you. Squawk Box will be right back.
Time now for